This is Heartrepreneur Radio, maximizing your personal and business results by leading with your heart. With your host, Terri Levine. Listen every week as Terri tackles the topics that will help you become a successful heart-centered entrepreneur. Be sure to read the blog posts at www.heartrepreneur.com/blog. Come back often and add this show to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe in iTunes. You can also follow Terri on Twitter at MentorTerri and on Facebook.com/Heartrepreneur Terri Levine. And now, here's Terri.
Welcome back to Heartrepreneur Radio, Heartrepreneur TV. I'm Terri Levine, and I want you to take a moment and really ask yourself, during the day, how much time do you spend talking, emailing, and listening? 3 different areas: talking, emailing, and listening. Just notice your day. Are you constantly messaging at people on social media? Or are you hiding in your office or behind your computer emailing? Or are you really making heart-to-heart connections like entrepreneurs do, mostly listening and paying attention to see how your business can help someone else overcome their biggest issues? Just a little reminder, thank you again for joining us. I always have interesting and fantastic guests that I bring to you. And today I'm really excited about my guest. His name is Zander Phelps. And Zander talks about the skills to handle the pressure of daily life. So take a moment and ask yourself, what are some of the pressures that I have, right? We all have something that we feel is a pressure. And as life changes and flows, those things can change. So do you find ways to handle that? Or are you turning towards some external ways or habits, some that might be healthy, some that might not? Or are the answers to handling stress and pressure, like right in front of us, closer than we think? Zander's going to join us, and he's going to help us take a look at the pressures of our daily lives and some new ways that we can actually have more peace, fun, freedom, and ease in our lives. Zander, welcome to Heartrepreneur Radio and TV.
Good morning, Terri. It's great to be here. Thank you.
It's great to have you. So how did you get on the path that you're on? I'm always so curious, and I'd love to start there.
Okay. Well, a number of years ago, I worked for television for a while, and high stressful thing. I was working about 100 hours a week to do some amazing things there. But I decided I was through with it, and I got all my things down to a backpack, and I was about ready to start traveling. And one of my friends said, "Hey, Zander, do you have a hack in your pocket? Like, as in a hacky sack," right? So he handed me one, and I didn't think much about it, but I just started traveling. And but pretty soon that thing became my way of connecting with people anywhere I was at. I mean, like when I was first at the airport, my flight was delayed for 3 hours. So I just, I was about ready to read a book. I was about ready to sit down and read a book. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to pull out the hack and start playing. So I started playing. Some of my flight came up and played with me. And then the 3 hours went by really fast. And we were automatically connected with this person. And a stranger became an immediate friend in a nonviolent cooperative competition game. So, I mean, that really launched me. That was in 1995. And, after that, I traveled to about 50 countries and just kept on. I would just, first thing I did was go put my place to find a hostel or someplace to stay. And I'd go to the park and start playing and just met interesting people. But, it was a great connector. So that was officially launched me into the discovering more about play in general. But the hack was one of the key things.
I love that. And so interesting because I use the word play all the time. So like clients of mine will say, I'm really struggling, to get leads, or I'm struggling to close a sale. I'm like, no, you're not. You're playing. And in the world, the more you play, in my experience anyway, the easier, the more joyful it is. And if you go into things going, I'm struggling and I'm frustrated, well, that doesn't sound like a fun way to live. What do you have to say to that out of curiosity?
Yeah, well, I mean, you create what headspace you're in. So if you are frustrated, then naturally the world's gonna emphasize that. It's gonna be like, yes, you are struggling, you're having a tough time with it. And so play is like the default state. It's some place that, I mean, my interpretation is that we come here to play. I mean, that doesn't seem like anything else makes sense. But children, if you look at a baby when they come into the world, they have to play with everything to learn. So that for me is our default state. So I'm just like, if we can re-tap into that and recognize that everything can be playful, then therefore it is.
So let me play devil's advocate, because I had a client
Perfect.
bring this to me. So I had a client say, going through a divorce, she is. I may lose the home that I've been in for 20 something years that I love so much. And I'm having financial problems with my business and just all kinds of things. How can you possibly say that I should be playing and going through life in a playful state? So she asked that to me. So now I'm going to ask that one too.
Well, I get the challenge of the game as it appears, and how we run through it, and you can easily get swayed off of it. I easily get swayed off of my playful state, if you will. But the thing is once you start recognizing, find the little things that you can start appreciating and go through the whole thing of like, okay, well, this could be worse, or this could be this scenario. It starts giving that brain a little bit of opportunity for that other state to come back into play, if you will. So if you start off with that mentality, is there's always a way to find that silver lining. And then you start incorporating that into other parts of your daily life. It'll be your default state. It's where you'll come back to it. So yes, it is challenging at times, and that's what life is. It's supposed to be a challenge for you. But if you can remember that you can always find that playful state, and just there are little tools and tricks you can do to get your brain to remind back to the default state. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough playground at times.
Tough playground. I love that. I love that. So what do we do if all of a sudden, there's external circumstances in our lives and we're like, I'm just so stressed, I don't know what to do. Some people stop taking care of themselves. They don't eat well. They're not drinking water. They're turning to alcohol or whatever it is. What can we actually do? What practical tools can we use instead of maybe unhealthy habits?
Depending on what type of situation you're in. I mean, one of the tools that I promote, and I'm like, this is phenomenal, is I juggle. I juggle lots of times. Right? It's I mean, not only is it's I call it the ultimate brain exercise, because when you're actually doing juggling, your brain resets. It focuses as well as relaxes. It builds white as well as gray matter in the brain. I mean, they're finding all these amazing things about what juggling can do for you. So if I'm standing in a line somewhere, I'm juggling. I'm just practicing working my brain, and it also entertains other people. So that's pretty cool. But if you're in a situation where you can't do it, another great thing to do is hum. Is if you hum, it also it'll calm down your vagus nerve, and because it vibrates the back of your brain right here. It's a very powerful tool that's pretty easy to do. One of the things I do is I hum "Happy Birthday" to myself. Because it reminds me of warm, fuzzy times or whatever. And I come through the thing and I just, oh, okay. And I'll start giggling, usually to myself. So, those are some tools you can use in different places. I mean, there's hand exercises you can do as well. There's different ways just to get your brain to default and go to different sections and remind you of different things else, just to take your brain out of the state you're in. Because that's all it is when you're in a negative state, you're thinking negative thoughts. Yeah. You're a place where your brain is locked into this could happen, that could happen, because our brain is a survival, that we go through the survival state, and that's where our brain looks for what's wrong and focuses on that. So if you can, disrupt the matrix, if you will, or find a way to just kick it out of it, then you'd be able to jump back to the other state. So.
I like that. I have a lot of toys. It's funny we're talking about this. Like by my bedstand, I have a Rubik's Cube. I have this little balls, these little rings that you have to put together. And people have said to me, like, why do you carry toys with you? I don't carry them when I travel. I carry them on planes. Like, it relaxes my mind. It also allows me to just really get focused because I have to concentrate. And I find if I'm doing that, I'm also just in a different state where I'm not thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, what might happen, or whatever. Even on an airplane, instead of worrying, am I going to be late? Is my ride still going to be there? Whatever it is, I just focus on the present moment with toys. So I'm fascinated by this.
Nice. I mean, toys. It's amazing. I mean, how significant toys can be and what they can do for our lives, just to remind us that everything is going to be okay. It literally, for me, it is that playful state. Yeah. It's that state that, it brings us back to that moment that we are okay. It's not about the other scenarios that could possibly happen. If you're in playful right now, you're playful. Mm-hmm. So toys are a great reminder. I mean, I always have hacks in my pocket. just because like they're always there. I feel the little pressure on my leg, and it reminds me, you can play. So that was like, that was one of the most significant things after I got that hack and I played for 3 hours in the airport. When I got to my seat on the plane, it was there. It was just going boom, boom, boom. And then, and then I was feeling into my body about how much exercise I received from 3 hours of, kicking around this hack out of midair and balancing my body, which is, again, extraordinary brain exercise. I mean, juggling is the best, as I call it, the ultimate brain exercise, but hack I call the ultimate physical exercise. It's severely underestimated as far as what it does for your bodies.
Wow.
So yeah, and you could play it anywhere, by yourself or in a group of people, and everyone's working together. Different colored uniforms. Nobody goes home crying because they've been crushed. It's a matter of working together to create this bond of interaction. It's very unique. And every place I went, I would try to learn how they played in that area. Right? I tried every sport I can get my hands on because I'm an athlete. I love playing. Right? But every time after that sport, I'd pull out a hack and get everyone to play hack. And it was always welcomed anywhere I was at. And it didn't take hard to explain it. It wasn't like complicated rules. Hey, you run over here, I'm going to try and, do this. It was a matter of just everyone got it immediately. So, and then once I learned how to make them, I learned how to make these things. I was able to gift them away to everybody. Like my first friend gifted me. He was like, keep this in your pocket. It's going to be the best gift anyone's going to ever give you. I've given away thousands of them over the years.
Wow.
Right?
That's so cool.
It's so cool because then, I compare it with the fisherman story, right? You give somebody fish, you feed them for a day, teach them how to make these things. You can give them a playful spirit all life. So that once you learn how to make them, you could put like happy birthday on it, Bobby, and give it to somebody, and you've made it for them, but you've also given them the ultimate play tool. So it's something that they can use for their whole time. The ball is the ultimate play tool. It's not just for hacking or juggling. You can throw them at something, play catch with each other. Great for babies because it's filled with hemp fabric and hemp seeds, so they can tease with it. So you put them in the freezer during a tough cutting time. They can bite into them and help like push on their own teeth.
Really?
So yeah, and they can squeeze it, which builds neuromuscular coordination and tactile senses, right? And then when you throw it at them, it won't hurt. So they can learn to catch, which is extraordinary for the brain. Is catching and learning how to catch and throw. Right? So it's the gift that keeps on giving. So, right.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what would you say, because I know we talked about the answers might be right there. What would you say to someone who, while they're listening to us and they're going, well, this sounds really great, and you don't really know all the stuff going on in my life, what would you say to them right now if they were sitting right in front of you? Because they are.
Hello. First of all, you are taken care of. You are loved, and you are safe. If you got to be able to retrain that mind to think, because you go down that negative path so easily, and the world can become overwhelming, especially now. I like watch on social media and thinking about all these people talking about how they are just making it, and then you get stuck into the way you're not. And how you're less every time, and then all these other things coming bombarding you. So I get that. I empathize with that. I'm like, hey, but you've got to recognize that you in your natural state is always there. It just wants to be awoken up inside of you. So find something that can change up your pattern. Get away from the computers. Go for a walk. Just get some fresh air. I mean, it's find something that'll be able to change you up. Play cards. Do something that can just change it up a little bit, and then. Again, try to focus on the moments that make it life a little bit better, or that in your day, there's always something that you can celebrate, and focus on those moments. And then that'll make the world more and more fuzzy. And then you start recognizing those more, the brain will start seeing those and start focusing on those, and that'll change your scenario up. It might take a little bit of time depending on how deep you are into it. And I mean, you can go down the rabbit hole pretty deep, and it's scary down there when you're by yourself or you're seeing a thing. But as much as we're access to, on the internet, we have access to all this social media negative stuff. There's also access to positive stuff too. Find something that you're interested in on the internet, or something that can change your mind that way. But I do advise people to get away from the screens if you can. Because it can be very draining, and it can easily get distracted. So you want your brain to give that chance for it to relax, and then go back to that natural state. So
fantastic advice. Fantastic. I teach my clients to ask themselves this one question over and over again, which is, what is working? So when it looks like everything in, your life is falling apart, you just go, well, what is working? And sometimes it could be something really small. I have food, I have air conditioning, I have clean water, I can look outside my window, whatever it is, that helps change the moment. And the other thing you mentioned is, there's always something to be grateful for. There's always something to celebrate. So it's shifting your focus. And I love how we're, not just using our brain and trying to, quote, move ourselves in a different way. You're giving us actual toys and tools and props. I love this. So who is a typical kind of person that you work with, and how do you help them? And definitely, how can people get in touch with you? You fascinate me. I'm so excited to meet you.
You too, Terry. I work with all types of different people, depending on, if I've worked with young kids, I've worked with elderly, just because, even I had one guy who had Parkinson's disease, and I was starting to show him just how to squeeze the hack. He started to take one of them and squeeze it on one side, and he would squeeze on the other side, and he learned to toss it on one side and toss it on the other side, and then he was tossing it back and forth, and then he was starting to learn the tools of learning how to juggle. And he was explaining how much that made in his general lifetime. Like, it wasn't just specific with hand-eye coordination, but he found himself, he was like, things are becoming a little more clearer for me. It's pretty cool. And the exercises, I'm finding that I could focus on those, and it's just really helped me out in so many different ways. So, I'm going into schools and talking to them about the fundamentals of play, and how we can, how it's so important that children can stay in that state, because the antithesis to work is not play. It's actually, if the more playful you can get, the more creative your mind can get, the more you can find different solutions, and the better you can focus. So it's a way of bridging those gaps. The whole premise of that play is something wrong. It's always been a frustrating thing for me, just to try and get across. I just go, no, the opposite. Play is everything. If we can get to that point, you could do anything in a playful state. That's what's wonderful. So, I talk more about it. I'm trying to relaunch this in a whole other way, Terry, because I've been living it for a number of years. And then I've just started to get my whole focus together. I've just put together my website, which is HACKiDO.org, HACKiDO. I call it HACKiDO.org. Because it was supposed to be ACKiDO, but then my brother's like, make it HACKiDO, right?
It's brilliant. As soon as I saw the name, I'm like, that's brilliant.
Yeah, my brother, I'm also like, ooh, also supposed to hack I do. And he's like, yeah. So, because it's about, the tools are on there for people to download. You can download the stencil of how to make them. I have a short video section on there of how to juggle, although I've just put together a whole course now, which just goes into more in depth in it and gets people a 5-day course, which a lot of people skip the actual steps of juggling. They try and just teach you to go to a 2-ball juggling and get frustrating. So I try and build on people's confidence and get them to know that they can do it. Because juggling is one of those things. Like, if you can have 2 hands, and you want to get into it, you should get into juggling. It's truly that extraordinary for people. If you knew how good it was, I tell people, if you know how good it was for you, you just juggle. You wouldn't even question it. And so it's just like, if you think you can juggle, you want to try and do it, you should get to that point where you can juggle. Just force yourself in.
Oh, cool. It's funny. I'll share this with you. It's so funny we're talking about this. I think when I was in my 20s, I was watching a juggler, I think it was on TV or something, and I'm like, that doesn't look that hard, right? So I had tennis balls. That's the only thing that I had.
Okay.
And I remember, of course, it wasn't that easy like it looks on TV. And I remember I couldn't really do it. But every few days I had left those tennis balls out. So every few days I was trying a little bit more, and nobody showed me how. And all of a sudden I started to figure out, like, oh, it's like kind of a system. And if you're really watching, I had so much fun. I remember I was laughing and I was having so much fun. And then somehow those balls got put away. And here it is, how many decades later, I've never thought about it again. And now you have me curious, like, I wonder if my, eye-hand coordination would do that. I'm gonna give it a whirl again. I'm gonna have some fun with that. Thank you.
Yeah. I warn people about tennis balls. That's one of the things I'm like.
Oh, that's what I use, tennis balls. Tell me what I should use. Let's do it right.
Well, there's, of course, my number one tool is to learn how to make the hacks.
That would be a better place to start.
But I mean, those take a little bit of time to make. I mean, but it's learning how to make the hacks. First of all, is an amazing brain exercise.
That's step one.
Because,
okay.
Because you're taking two-dimensional pieces and making a three-dimensional object out of it. But you learn how to sew. So that sewing is a meditation itself. It's a left and right hand coordinator. So you're learning these really cool stitches of learn how to make this ball. So the whole process of making a hack is another brain exercise.
Got it.
But
start there.
In the course, I teach people how to make juggling balls, pretty good juggling balls, just out of rice, paper bags, and balloons. And they're very quick to make.
Okay.
So, right? Versus, I mean, of course, buying juggling balls are the best because they're weighted and they got the nice feel to them.
Right.
But for most people, that's not really an option. You know what I mean? Like, so the problem with tennis balls is they bounce everywhere.
Yes, so that is what happened.
Right. And then you're gathering tennis balls and stuff.
Running around getting them.
They could bounce on something, break something, and you don't want that to happen. So I tell people they can also use socks. You can roll up socks, but they're also not round. They're they're kind of, so they're okay. Fruits, you don't want to use fruits. A lot of people are like, oh, show people showing up an apple or something like that. But then you're worried about the apple dropping. So that puts a little extra pressure into your enjoyment. And then if you do drop it, then you bruise the fruit. So it's like, that doesn't work as well either. So just learning how to make them. I mean, it's a simple process of just stuffing rice into a bag and then cutting a balloon and wrapping around it. So.
Right. You got me so curious. I'm going to be trying this out. So folks should go over to I love that .com.
HACKiDO.com or .org. It was originally .org, but a guy saw that I had a site, so he had .com and he gave it to me. And so now he was very cool. It was very nice. He was like, well, you see, you have a business. I'm like, oh, you're sweet. So now anytime somebody puts in .com, it goes directly to .org.
Okay,
so,
perfect.
Right. So I got both bases covered, but I'm still working on things and starting to put more content in there and stuff like that, and adding. I mean, it's I'm wearing lots of hats right now, trying to put everything right, what you got to do. But I really want this information to get out there for people because that was one of my goals. Is like I call it HACKiDO is for the path of play for me. I call it, that's the noun. HACKiDO is the path of play, right? So actually, I think that's the verb. The noun is the actual hack. The verb is the path of play. The noun is the actual hack, because that's because you learn how to make it. HACKiDO. You learn how to make this thing, and then you have infinite play possibilities with you all the time. And then you can give them away to other people and change the world, if you will, change your own world. But also, again, when you're juggling, if you're playing around, it gives people the excuse to play themselves. You know what I mean? It's just like, every time if I'm in a line juggling like that, I don't know how many people come to say, oh, that's cool. Like, oh, that's cool. Or, children are just memorized by it. Wow, juggler.
Yeah.
And I believe it's in our DNA. I really do. I think it's something that's that fundamental with us. That's like, everything is cool. Everything is fine. So, I mean, it's one of those things. It's our fundamental purpose. I consider play our fundamental purpose.
I got that. Fun.
Right?
F-U-N.
Right. So it's that basic for us. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us here at Heartrepreneur Radio and TV. You have definitely put fun back in our day. And we really need a diversion to look at how can we stay present in the moment, not so concerned about all these things in the future. And as we're here, just being more playful, enjoying our lives. Zander, you've been a delight. Thanks again for joining me here.
So great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome. And for the viewers, for the listeners, again, it's hack, then IDO, very easy.org, very easy. And just take away something from today. What did you hear from Zander to help you lighten up? How did you maybe shift for a few moments, letting some pressure go? And really take a few moments and ask, how can I be more playful? How can I have more fun? And for you, our listener, our viewer, please go over to Facebook, Heartrepreneurs with Terri Levine. It's a Facebook group. As soon as you get in, go over to the documents area. There are so many files, tips, and tools that many of our guests have given. that are just sitting in there waiting for you to download. And Zander, love to have you over in Heartrepreneurs with Terri Levine too, so we can all play more. Thank you for joining me here at Heartrepreneur Radio and TV, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.
You've been listening to Heartrepreneur Radio, maximizing your personal and business results by leading with your heart with your host, Terri Levine. This show is produced every week for your enjoyment and education. To make sure you never miss a single show, add us to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe in iTunes. You can also read Terri's latest blog posts at www.heartrepreneur.com/blog or follow Terri on Twitter at MentorTerri and on Facebook.com/Heartrepreneur Terri Levine. Your questions and comments are always welcome and appreciated. Send them to Terri on either Facebook or Twitter. Thank you for listening.